Hello, and welcome to MrDudeManSir. And today, I am going to be reading again. Because last time I did a little reading thing, and people enjoyed it. So I was thinking, well, I have some free time, I just got done recording. I was like, why not just, read? It's fun. So I'm going to be reading, again, The Lucienne Twins. I will never forget the Lucienne Twins. Even after 10 years, they're still fresh in my memory. Too fresh. It was my first year of teaching when they were in my class. My fresh college diploma was framed on my desk, and I had placed a signed picture of my favorite professor, now deceased, on the wall behind me. In cursive, it read, "To Mary, my brightest, that you may teach the world." I watched over my kindergarten class as if they were my own children, but the Lucienne twins were my favorite. There was Abigail, the blonde one with minuscule nose, the Bridget short with brunette hair. "Miss Mary," Abigail would start, tugging on my dress before Bridget continued. We were wondering. Abigail would take over if we can go to the sticker box. Bridget would now speak, and take a star. And of course there was no way I could say not to the couple. They were irresistible, from the broken sentences to the heart-shaped lockets they wore on the embossed through their names. I could never imagine something happening to them, but fate follows no rules, and something did. Word about a car crash spread around the school faster than an ambulance could reach the hospital. I had been at an intersection where the pickup truck had slammed into the side of the compact car on the Friday morning commute. The driver had still been drunk from the night before. The gas tank was immediately ruptured, spewing the right side of the car fuel, and flames licked up through the entire back seat. Bridget was strapped into a car seat above them, and rumor was that Abigail watched her twin burn alive. When the firemen freed Abigail, she threw herself onto the still smoldering bones of Bridget, and her sister's red-hot lock branded itself into an earlobe. The body of a single mother survived, but the toll of the lost daughter sickened their souls. Abigail returned to class 2 weeks later. The hair on the right side of her head was singed and steadily grew back, though the color was darker. A doctor's inspection revealed nothing else wrong with her, except the deafness in her right ear. Hushed noise in the school hallways whispered her eardrum and floated by the sheer loudness of her sister's dying screams. But most unnerving was her sister's name, scarred into the lobe of her deaf ear, and surrounded by the outline of her heart-shaped locket. From then on, no student would sit on the right side of Abigail, and I had to rearrange the seating charts to place her next to the wall. Abigail seemed content there, in an island of isolation. Before her sister died, they rarely conversed with other students, and now it was no different. In social time, I would hear Abigail talking to the wall in incoherent sentences. "Abigail, honey, what are you saying?" I asked a week after she returned. "Oh, Miss Mary," she said, Then she would pause, waiting, and then bethought, another pause, silence. "And we can't we?" "Sure you can, honey," I replied, though the exchange made my hair stand on end. She smiled again, and cocked her right ear, the deaf one, to the wall, pausing again, then speaking. She said yes. The gibberish continued and the closing bell rang. It wasn't until I drove halfway home that I realized the gaps in Abigail's conversation were where Bridget should be speaking. Months passed, and Abigail became even more of an outcast in class. The kindergartners came to forget the disaster. Some students even began bullying Abigail. I revised the seating chart again, and moved her close to my desk. "Miss Mary," clamored Abigail one day, pulling my dress. She stumbled and I reached to catch her, but she fell against my professor's portrait on the wall, shattering the protective glass. She picked up the remains, the glass biting deep into her soft palms. She didn't notice. "I'm sorry, Miss Mary," she said, and her voice changed tenor. "We didn't mean to break." Again, a pitch change. "Your picture." I stopped. It was her first complete sentence since the crash. "It's okay," I said, holding her. Blood from her hands dripped onto me, but I felt cold, and I rushed to bandage it. "I'm sure you'd teach the world one day, Miss Mary," she said, her voice continuing the inflections. My heart rose as I read the note the portrait the 1,000th time. Abigail couldn't read cursive. "How'd you know that?" I asked. "Bridget told me. She talks to him now," she said, curling her streak of hair darker around her finger. "That's not all she tells me. She tells me terrible things sometimes. I can't stop hearing her." Then she started crying and noticed the glass embedded deep in her hands. She never stops. Her voice elevated to a yell. When I took the picture back, her sentences became broken again, and I moved on the seating chart away from my desk. Over time, the other students realized Abigail's reaction to old objects. They'd bring her in things that she found in the attic, artifacts that grandparents owned, and watch as she cocked her right ear into the sentences become whole and broken when she held them. It became a game to them, listening to the stories she made up, but the effect took an obvious toll on her, and she soon started wearing gloves, even in the dead heat of summer. But one boy, larger than the others, a brute known for his bullying, liked the look on Abigail's face as they pushed artifacts into her squirming palms. He was the quickest to see the fear that she felt when she once gave her an old bullet shell, and ran home afterwards to find an old box in his basement his parents forbade him to open. Inside was his great-grandfather's Nazi uniform, a warden to a concentration camp, and he twisted off one of the buttons. The next day he found Abigail in the playground and pinned her against the chain-link fence. He ripped the gloves off and forced the button into her hand, tightly closing her fingers around it. When she began screaming, he only laughed, and closed the fist tighter. I reached him too late. When I pulled the boy off her, she was sobbing uncontrollably, both her hands locked in fists. She dropped the button like it was searing hot, but refused to open the other fist until paramedics arrived and knocked her out with anesthesia. Only then could they pull her severed right ear out, torn off by her bloody fingernails, with Bridget still written on the lobe. Most terrifying of all was when she screamed. I could hear two voices screaming.